So here are all our pallets. This video is going to be about breaking down pallets, the quick way, and things that you can make out of pallets.
Okay, so as you can see, I'm standing in front of a pile of pallets. We're going to start doing a new video series on what you can make out of pallets, basically, because we've used these kind of things for lots and lots of different projects, and I'll make sure that Lesley puts a few still images in of some of the other things we've made with pallets, and you won't believe what we've done actually. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you the quick and dirty way I break down pallets using a reciprocating saw and a blade that is for metal and wood to cut through. I'll show you how to do it, but quick and dirty way of breaking down these pallets, and then what we'll end up with is a pile of wood on the table, and we'll start talking about what we're going to make with it. Okay, so what you see in front of you is what I've got out of one single pallet. Now there are different types of pallets that you're going to get your hands on. There is basically one standard pallet, and that's the Euro pallet, and that's what this is. A standard Euro pallet is 1200, I think that is. Yeah, 1200 millimeters by 600, I think. So what did I get out of that? Well, I got three of these big 1200 millimeter boards. They're 1200 mil by 140 mil. And they're 20 mil thick. I got three of these boards. They're 800 by 140. I got two of these. They're 1200 by 100. And then I've got these three here. Basically a dirty one of these and two dirty ones of these. I like to ignore these. I put these in the recycling pile. Lel, on the other hand, thinks that these look just lovely and she wants to keep these. There's always a fight between us. But anyway, that's what you get out of a broken down Euro pallet. Non-standard pallets come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And this is one of those pallets broken down. So like, 10 of these boards, 6, 7, 8 of these boards, 2 of these boards. It really, there's another one here that I did, there's 10 of those. They're good, decent, thick, usable boards, So what I'm going to do in a minute, I'm going to break down a pallet using all my tools. I use a masonry chisel, a huge hammer, I use a claw hammer, pair of pliers, and my reciprocating saw, and you're going to see me using all three of those things to break down a pallet.
And the little metal pointy thing.
And the little metal pointy thing for getting nails out with. You'll see me break down a pallet, and it's a combination of brute strength and using the reciprocating saw to get through it quickly, get all the nails out of it, and end up with the pile of wood like this. Okay, so I've got a pallet here, and I'm just going to run through again what it is that I do to break down a pallet. So these are the tools that I've got: masonry chisel, heavy hammer, mallet, reciprocating saw, and then once I've got all the boards off, claw hammer, pair of pliers, an old chisel that's knackered that I use to dig things out with, and a little, I think it's a leather punch that I use for pushing out the heads of nails and things. So the first thing I do is I use these two things. And what I do is I focus on the back of the pallet, the underside of the pallet, the bit that's the dirty bit, the bit that's been on the ground. And what I do is I put the blade of the chisel in that where this board is joined. And I force that apart. I'll do the same here. Now I've got them forced apart, I use this. Sorry, I'm standing in front of the camera here, but so that's that board separated from there. Yeah? And what I do is I repeat that process here and down there. I flip the back, I'll flip it over and do the same on all the other joints. Just going to put that to one side for a minute. Because here's one. Here's one I already did.
Like
I've only got so far with this one. All I've done with this, a slightly different design to that pallet there. All I've done is I've removed the 3 skids from the bottom. So I've taken those off. And the next stage of the process is the bit that I referred to earlier as the brute force bit. Because what I'm doing now is just going to use my mallet and I'm just going to hit these blocks to get them off, because all I'm really interested in is the top boards. They're the clean ones, they're the ones that we can use for projects. I will normally discard the runners because they're just too filthy. As I mentioned earlier, Lesley seems to like those ones, but so,
you've got character.
So, that's the next stage. Now what I'll do, and I appreciate that everybody doesn't have an enormous workbench like I've got, but what I'll do is I'll flip that over there and I'll start using my claw hammer to knock these nails out through the other side, doing most of the work in releasing these top boards and separating out all these boards. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so this is a good example of some of the challenges you'll face with a pallet. What I've got here is they've been nailed together in different ways. So remember the blocks were here. So some of these nails here were through this board into the block, and some of these nails are through this board all the way through into the block. Makes it a little bit tricky in terms of separating the pallet sometimes, but what it means is that, you know, I'll only get so far and then I'll maybe use the reciprocating saw again to cut through them. this is what I was talking about the nails that were through this piece of wood, in between there and there. So I couldn't hammer them out. I had to wait until I got this piece off before I could get them out. So there you go, that's it broken down, that's all the nails taken out. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 of these and 3 of those, and they've all been denailed. They're probably 1200 baht long, I would imagine so. Yep, 1200 by 85 by 20. A decent piece of timber that can be reused, and it's been completely denailed, so if I wanted to I could run this through a planer or anything else to clean it all up. They'll tend to prefer things a little bit rustic, shall we say. So I don't get to do that kind of thing in most projects, but it could be done because I have taken every single nail out of these and they're ready to be used on a project.
All the nails that Martin has pulled out of the pallets I use them for projects, and so he keeps them in jars for me. So this is the wood that Martin has accumulated in a few hours all this wood, and that is 4 pallets. And these are the middle bits. We haven't figured out something to make out of these yet, but we're
open to suggestions.
Yeah, if you can think of anything, let us know. But there you go. There's the wood.
Now, just I just want to say, that much timber, that much lumber, from wherever you would normally buy your timber from, that's a lot of money sitting there, and that's all free. And all it took was an hour and a half, 2 hours of work with a chisel and a hammer and a bit of muscle, obviously, but but that's it. Just and it can be done. I've seen lots of videos of people breaking down pallets where they're lazy about it. They'll take a reciprocating saw like this, and they'll literally just cut down the middle of the pallet, ending up with lots of pieces of wood about this big. But that's no use for projects. You need the length. You need the option to have, a 1200 meter length, a 1200 millimeter length, or an 800 millimeter length, or something for whatever your projects are. So it's worth the investment in the time and the energy and the effort that it takes to do it, because look what you end up with, and it's all free.
Right. So what Martin's doing here is he's using his chop saw, and he's just measuring the length of the crate box that he's going to make, and he's just getting everything cut on the chop saw.
Okay, so we decided what we're going to make with the first thing that we're going to make with some of this pallet wood is a chest, a box with rope handles on it. Lel's got some ideas about what she's going to do with it when it's finished, but this is the footprint of it, and it's going to have a wall coming up to about that height. Same on this side. Boxed in, open on the top with some rope handles on the side. It'll all get stained up and painted and stenciled and cleaned and sanded and all the other bits and pieces. But I'm just trying to give you a rough idea of what the object to this exercise is, what the project is. So this is the first thing that we're making out of this pile of pallet wood that we've got.
So what Martin's doing here is he's just screwing it all together. Martin, we have an air compressor, a nail gun, but if we want things to last, and he makes things that are built to last, he generally drills them, pilot holes first, and then drills them, puts them all together.
Okay, so here is we'll call it the starting point of the project. We've created the basic structure, and what we're going to be going for here is a very kind of rustic, kind of vintage apple crate type look. So hopefully you can see where we're going with this already. So we're going to give this a very light sanding. We want to keep the authenticity of the piece. We're going to put some rope handles. I've drilled holes in the ends for rope handles, and we'll probably do a stencil or something on it, to sort of allude to what we are saying it is. So I love it. It's looking really rustic and good already. So watch this space.
And here's that finished box. So this is what Martin has made so far tonight, and we still have all this wood over here left over. So tomorrow I'll start painting all these and finish them all up, and I'll show you.
And she'll tell me what else I'm to make for her.
And I'll get Martin on the case for making more things. So at the beginning of the video, Martin talked about things we'd made out of pallets. This is what we call our hot tub house. It's all got a bench in it for over winter, but it was built out of pallets. We put our hot tub in there in the summer, and we built this about 8 years ago. It's our summer house. The whole structure, it was clad with wood that people were selling for fires, but the whole structure of our summer house is made out of pallets, the whole thing, the internal walls, everything. We use pallet wood for lots of different things, but this is what we made and it's still going strong. Now this needs a coat of paint. I feel a bit ashamed showing you that, but Martin made great big planters out of pallets. So you can make loads of things out of pallets. So here's our boxes that were made last night, and I am just about to stain them. So I use a process of acrylic, water and black glaze. So what I do first is I'll have a really watery mixture of brown acrylic paint and some black acrylic paint. And what I do is I paint the light one on first, and then what I do is I make a thicker one with more brown paint, some black glaze in it, and I paint it over the top of that. And then what we do is we varnish them. But before I do that, I then go in with some black glaze in the corners of the boxes and the edges of the boxes to make them look like they're vintage, to make them look like they've really lived a life. And although they are reclaimed, it's reclaimed wood, we want to give it that really aged, rustic, apple crate sort of feel. So this is the watery one that I'm applying at the moment. And then I go in with the thicker, darker ones once I've what I'm trying to do with the first coat is just even up the colour a little bit, because the palette would do different colours, you know, where the slats have been and how aged it is. So what I'm doing here with the palette wood is I'm just trying to even it all out first. Now in this light it looks a little bit yellowier, but it isn't actually. So it's just really watery, and I just soak it. And then what I do is when I go in with the darker, the thicker one, the next coat is I leave them in the sun just to dry out before I do any stenciling or anything to them. So that's just what I'm doing here. I'm just getting on my first coat and making sure that all my sides are coated. And I don't scrimp, I slap it on. I make sure that it's gone in all the cracks and all the dings and the joins, there's no kind of pale bits showing. I make sure it's all covered before I put the darker acrylic over the top. Now acrylic with its plastic content seals wood really well. It's really good at colouring it. Once it's on, it weathers really nicely. You don't have to apply any varnish or anything over the top, but on our crates we put outdoor varnish, and then that way people have options. They can either have it indoor or outdoor. It's entirely up to them. So that's the first crate with its first coat of sort of light evening out colour done. And this is me just kind of like getting to put the thicker on. Now this is Martin using his CNC, because one of the orders was a toy box and it's for a little girl called Poppy. So Martin's just using his CNC and he's just hoovering it out there and just picking out the rest of the cutouts for the words Poppy's Toys. And there it is cut out before this will be painted with chalk paint and sanded down and then sealed. This is me. You can't make old crates and have brand new rope. It doesn't look good, so I'm aging the rope. So this is them. They've had their light coat of even up acrylic and then their dark coat to thicken it up. And then what I've done is I've got black glazes, and as you can see I've run it along in the edges to give them that aged feel. You can still see lines. You can tell it's been a crate, but that's okay. You want it to look like, you want it to look what it originally was. This is me starting to put stencils on them. This one's going to be like as if it's from a honey farm box. And I've just cut the stencils out of my silhouette. And what I use for my stencils is black acrylic and a little bit of plaster of Paris to thicken up the stencil. So there's our finished boxes. This one's Poppy's Toys, the honey farm crate, and the tote with the salvage chair leg handle. I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and if you want to see more things to make out of pallets, please subscribe and share it to whoever you want. Thank you.